with that mentality, if you let them go, they're all going to go flat out through Eau Rouge. That's it. And if one of them chooses not to, you've got a fucking mess.
We're trying very hard to enjoy this sport and talk about it. But, and I know in the past there's been domination from Schumacher and Hamilton, but never to this extent. I find it very difficult to get enthused.
Anyone that's ever driven in Dubai or had the misfortune to drive there will, I'm sure, confirm that that place is impossible to drive around. Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the Collecting Addicts podcast. A recent revelation is that Neil Clifford has no idea what happened at this week's Grand Prix at Spa, so we're passing straight to him to ask him his thoughts on the Spa Grand Prix.
Well, I did watch it because, as again, the cricket was rained off, and what the fuck happened? It was exciting for about 10 minutes, wasn't it? You know, it was. Oh my God, Max isn't in the front. That's really good. And then he became in the front, and we all went off and fucking went out in the garden or something. But you know, it was good for the first little bit, wasn't it? And then we were all praying for rain, and that didn't really come. And just sprinkling. Did Lewis get on the podium? No,
he was fourth. I'm going to ask you a simple question then, Neil Clifford. Ranking your peak of summer sporting experiences on television, where would you put F1 relative to the cricket, relative to Wimbledon?
Oh, I think F1 is down in like numbers below. It's below women's football, isn't it?
Oh, bloody hell. Okay. Right, let's not go there. Manish, save us from getting cancelled.
I thought it was actually a pretty good race, you know, comparatively. And it's quite nice seeing Lewis coming in right at the end and putting in the fastest lap. That was really good. I'd imagine that slightly pissed Max off. But the bit about the Grand Prix that I liked the most was like our intern, Ben, who is in Thailand. He found a bar to watch it in with a mate, and he sent me a text going, "Do you think we should produce a sitcom between Gianpaolo Lambassi and Max Verstappen, because they just have this fantastic, the engineer and him." And I just realized, you know what, all we'd have to do is basically get them to script the film Arthur. And what you'd have Max Verstappen as Arthur going, "Well, you know, you really fucked that up for me." And Lambassi going, "Yes, and would you like me to scrub your dick for you as well, you little shit?" It would just be fantastic. Literally. You know, they love each other so much. They love each other so
much.
They
do. It's quite a good little relationship.
It is.
It's a great relationship. Yeah. It really is.
The fact we're having to talk about it sort of shows how decrepit and meager the entertainment has become.
Yeah, I think you're quite right, because we didn't always have radio transmissions. F1 is titulating via the periphery at the moment, I would say. Yeah. See, do you agree?
Yeah. So I've got two peripheral titivations. I discovered something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Anybody heard of that? I haven't heard of that.
Is it anything to do with preparing stories about track days and then being told you're not going to use them this week?
No, I'm not talking to you about that.
Okay.
No, the Dunning-Kruger effect.
You're talking about egos and big heads, aren't you?
The Dunning-Kruger effect was introduced to us by Alain Prost, who said that the behavior of Rossi was a classic case of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And some of you might know, my boring day job is about sorting out how and why organizations usually don't work. I'd never heard of that. It's got a graph and everything. There was a graph for it somewhere. It was not as good as our graph of shitness of convertibles to joy and satisfaction.
Oh, that's a great graph.
That was a great graph, but this is not quite as good as that. So I thought it was, how Alain Prost to delve into the books and thinking of organizational effectiveness to try and describe how badly Renault's doing.
Was it Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey?
No, it wasn't. No.
And also, can you just quote? You must have it written down. He issued the most coruscating takedown of what he thought of that Rossi chap, didn't he?
He did. He said he's the best example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. That of an inept manager who thinks he can overcome his incompetence with arrogance and his lack of humanity towards his people.
Oh,
meow.
Bloody hell.
Alan's not happy.
That's good, isn't it?
We don't like it when Alan's not happy. The other thing I took away from it was so my little chuckle that Otmar's chuckling into his pudding, that didn't age well. So he and Alan Permain, and there's a lot of people on the telly. I didn't see it yesterday because I was a bit busy at Silverstone being rained on, but it was obvious that people think that Alan Permain, for those of you who know, you've heard it, been there a million years, proper chap. Otmar's also got the flick. And there's a fantastic quote I saw from Otmar this morning. He said, talking about his Alpine departure, he said, talking about what he was trying to do before, blah, blah, blah. He said, the reality is the changes I was trying to make take time. I've hired some good people from other teams, but they won't join the team until 2024 or 2025. As I always say, you can't impregnate 9 women and hope you'll have a baby in a month. Do you think he's tried that?
Did he really say that?
It's on the internet. It must be true.
Dear me.
Oh, he's a total dude, and I
love him. I think he's.
So right. Yeah. And this all this reminds me of was the Reggie back when they decided Prost was the problem in 1983. Literally, arguably the best driver in the world at that time.
Yeah.
We got a problem with the team. Let's get rid of him. Yeah. And their loss, McLaren's absolute gain. And it's just so funny, 40 years down the line, and I know I'm calling them Renault, not Alpine, but plus ça change. I mean, what has happened in the last 40 years? Exactly zero. What is the point of Alpine, by the way?
They make nice cars. Not very many of them, but they make nice cars.
They do. They make a lovely car.
$120 million a year making Formula One cars.
I think if you view Alpine, the F1 team, as the marketing outlet for their road car side, the sports car side, you'd have to assume that the marketing budget is 20 times the potential revenue of what a company can make.
They're lovely cars to drive. They're lovely cars to drive on track days, but we can't talk about that. No, can't talk about that. One thing we can talk about, though, the F2 feature race yesterday morning, that was actually quite good. I know they're all one make, but Mick Doohan won. I know it's his probably second or third year in the championship. He won from 11th on the grid, which is quite exciting. Ollie Bierman, I think he's 6th in the championship. He's won 3. I thought he was going to win yesterday. Very impressive young British driver. I think this is his first year. I think he was winner or runner-up in F3 last year. People talking about him very positively. So good to see him do okay yesterday. But the F2 race was worth watching.
Edward, you were a bit upset with me last week because I didn't give you your chance to say something profound about Formula One. And you sent me a slightly sniffy message on the WhatsApp group. So this is your platform, dear Edward, to tell us what you saw yesterday.
I don't think I said that at all. I saw a few things. On Saturday, I got very excited when there was water bubbling up through the drains in Eau Rouge. That's the perfect time to start a race, in my opinion. Do your fucking job, as I think it's what I said. Deal with the conditions and go give the audience some fun. I asked yesterday, are the rules changing in 2025? And I think you said yes, but it's actually 26, isn't it?
26 they change. They don't change next year, which is your question.
Okay. Yeah. So it's fine. So we've got 2 more years.
Anything else I can help you with?
No, we've got 2. You're all very chippy, aren't you? No,
you started it.
It's a double Chris thing here. It is quite concerning that we're trying very hard to enjoy this sport and talk about it. But I know in the past there's been domination from Schumacher and Hamilton, but never to this extent. So I find it very difficult to get enthused and to see there's going to be any change over the next 2 seasons ahead of us.
You're absolutely. I did that naughty thing. I dipped into the comments for last week, and a few people are hammering us for going, "Oh, you're always down on Max, and what about Ferrari's domination, and what about Lewis's domination?" And I would just like to say in our defense, none of us like extended periods of domination. We don't. And I think if we'd been doing this podcast somewhere between 2000 and 2004, we might well have been saying similar things about Michael. I think if we had been doing this, apart from Neil, before 2021, we may have said something cheeky about Lewis. There is something about the absolute mismatch between Perez and Verstappen, and this bullet And, people have just got to realize it's won every single race this year, 12 in a row. He has now won 8 races in a row this year, 8 races this year. That's as many as Senna won becoming world champion in 1988. We've got
it's a bloody reliable bullet. That's the terrifying thing.
And domination is very different to just winning. If you win every race, but every race is a race, that's very different.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate. We had that thing about it. It was a Ferrari, and that made us happy for a little bit. And I think, Lewis, it made us happy for a little bit. And I always felt with somebody like Rosberg, because his box is so different to Lewis's box in terms of their strength. He's much more technical, got the highest mark ever in the Williams engineering test. You always got the sense that, okay, Lewis had this amazing intrinsic speed, good technical ability. Rosberg maybe wasn't as quick, but was supremely technical. And you always got a sense that maybe Rosberg will be in it, maybe. And you heard what Marco said about Perez. Why should we get rid of him? He's worked out now that he can never be world champion. Shut the fuck up and do his job.
Yeah. I think that what I will say is that I had 1 or 2 moments during that race where I was reminded that maybe I've become a low-rent consumer of Formula One, that I've stopped trying to understand the subtleties of the sport, that you don't just have to see wheel to wheel, that you can enjoy strategy. There was a lovely moment at the start where we had a lot of different people on different tyres, different performance strategies. And I used to find that more enjoyable, maybe as I get older. It's a bit like those lay periods in Test cricket where I can allow myself to enjoy when nothing else is going on. Most people think, well, there's just 13 people standing in a field, but I'm still enjoying it. And I think there was one moment, particularly when Max had that little swapper in Eau Rouge. I thought it's so difficult for television to translate what you saw in that nanosecond.
Difficult.
You saw, there's probably only 2 or 3 people on the planet that could have gathered that up like that. And all we saw was a wheel do that, and it's over with. I think there was a moment where Cal Crutchlow was viewing some footage of Marquez many years ago on a MotoGP bike, where he has an accident and somehow manages to push himself off the accident with his elbow and his knee. And Crutchlow just says, what you've seen there's only one man on the planet, one human being on the planet that can do that. You just don't realize it. Only he can do that.
Yeah.
I almost felt that when I saw him. I can imagine Lewis, but I can't see the others maybe doing that. I've allowed myself to enjoy it for a second, but within 2 laps, I was thinking he's buggered off into the distance again.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Liberty Media, should they get Nui kidnapped or Max? What would be best for the sport?
Well, given that Perez is so far off him, you'd argue that Max is more important, but I'm not. The question is, if you gave Lando Norris that second Red Bull, what would happen?
It'd be better. It'd be in second place.
Yeah.
We may never know. We may never know. The other thing, actually, that was an interesting thread of the weekend was, can they race, should they race in the wet? And I was quite struck by Charles' comments about visibility. And I was at Silverstone yesterday. One of the boys was racing, Cam was racing in Caterham Series, and the second race was quite wet. It didn't feel like it had been raining that heavily, if I'm honest. The GB4 race immediately before them was canned. Single seaters obviously run much closer to the ground. The GB4 cars are non-Halo cars, and they're driven by quite young people. I think it'll be 14, 15 to run them. I sort of got that. Caterham's a bit more robust, bigger cage. And it started behind a safety car. And I was struck when they all came back in afterwards, how they all reacted to it. Clearly, it was very wet. There was a lot of standing water. Quite a few places the cars were sort of lifting up. We've raced, Monkey, you and I have raced in the wet. But I do think something has changed. There's a different perception of risk appetite. And we've always said, and I've always said to both my boys and everybody else, have you ever said, have you ever been scared? You've been nervous and frustrated, but plain downright scared. It's in the rain, on a straight, where you think you can have a bit of a breather. In the rain, on a straight, all of your senses are telling you, I can't see a bloody thing. There could be something literally at the front of the car, and I'll never know it. And all your senses telling you, lift a foot. And we didn't. And we just assumed that's how we should have reacted. Now, for lots of reasons, all of which I get, I do think there's been a shift in attitude. And Martin had a bit of a go on the commentary on Saturday when the sprint was delayed. And he said, I'm glad I'm not in charge of this. You know, if we don't go now, they'll be on inters before the end of the safety.
Well, they did call it, didn't they? But they were still going around the safety car. And I think it was George Russell or Verstappen said,
George said.
Can I just counter that? I agree with you. I think it's an interesting point. But I think a lot of it's driven by the fact that most racing is now driven by data and ultimate possibilities, ultimate outcomes. And so when we were racing, and I think 20 years ago, you'd get in the car and you wouldn't be ashamed just to drive at the pace you were comfortable at. That was it, and that was that. Whereas now, I think there's so much pressure to be as quick as the person next to you.
Yeah.
It's not excusable to say, I don't mind being 3 seconds off because I reckon I'll last 50 laps. You've got to be on it straight away.
I get that. No, that's a very good point. Yeah.
And so there's with that mentality, if you let them go, they're all going to go flat out through Eau Rouge. That's it. And if one of them chooses not to, you've got a fucking mess.
Yeah, you're right. I had this debate with Karun last year at Monaco when they didn't start. I used to do an awful lot of international offshore yacht racing. And in yacht racing, one of the key rules is the decision to participate, including to start or end a race, rests solely with the skipper of the yacht. So it was a few years ago, the Fastnet race every 2 years, which I did a couple of times when I was much younger, was delayed. And that caused a real hoo-ha in the sport to say, if you don't want to start, don't start, but don't delay the start. And there were conflicting arguments either way about, well, hang on, responsibility of the organisers and so forth. And we have this debate in Motorsport UK about our risk appetite for the sport. And I'm becoming sort of more thoughtful as to where our boundaries should lie. And I think the data-driven thing, I think, is interesting. And you can definitely see they'd all give it a go. I don't honestly think there's anything extra dangerous about Spa as a track, other than the nonsense they've made of Eau Rouge and all that runoff. I think it's made it
The spray does seem to hang there quite a lot. There's another thing I'd love to have a techie person answer, which is, given these cars develop more downforce through ground effect now, does that mean they suck more moisture up than a wing-driven downforce that's just pushing the car down from airspeed over a wing?
They suck it up, they hoover it up.
They do seem to. I mean, I have to say that when I saw those shots when they were behind the safety car at the beginning, I thought from above, when you're looking through just a couple of meters of spray, it looks okay. But if you were sitting unable to really see much, even if it was dry, you'd say, I don't fancy this.
Yeah, another triumph for those crazy regulations.
Yeah. In recent years, obviously, there's also been some particularly big crashes at Spa as well. So there's no way they'd want to risk it. Neil,
I get that. I totally get that.
On Saturday, Neil and I were like, do your fucking job. But in those cars in those conditions, that they would be all over the place, regardless of how talented they are, with zero visibility.
Yeah.
It would be carnage, I'm sure.
I'm scared on the M1 in a GT3 if it starts raining, let alone.
Yeah.
We're going to move it on because you might not know this, but Edward has a dinner date this evening.
Has he?
And he's told us that we have to move quickly.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So we're going to move on to, and this is some lovely, casual, beautiful British nerdism from the learned colleague Neil Clifford. What's your favourite road sign? Because only really sad people would have a favourite road sign, but I do have a favourite road sign. I know what it is. Off the cuff, I'm going to tell you now. I don't offer answer first, but it makes me giggle every time. And it's when I see a bit of gravel being spurted up over an imaginary road and it says skid risk. Because I know that sign couldn't have been more misunderstood than the person that laid it could ever have imagined. Because they're telling me to slow down, and I'm thinking, I'll have a go here.
It's an opportunity.
Designed by a man, that sign.
This is bang on. So for me, lads, it's skid risk. What's yours, Chris Cooper?
Funny enough, actually, when I had this conversation with the boys, and I know people get irritated when I say that, but a while ago, we've already been regritted here, and both of them said, shouldn't that be skid opportunity, Dad?
Yes, exactly.
So favourite road sign is about feel good. It's about feel good, and it can be, it's mostly for me about destination. The road trips we've done to the Spa and to the Ring, a track day. Well, we can't talk about track days, can we?
No.
If you're going with some mates on track day to Spa or the Ring, when you see it's a sign for Francorchamps, not Spa.
Yeah.
Because the tracks at Francorchamps, not Spa.
Yeah.
When you come off that auto route, that fantastic auto route, and it's been a great trip, and you come off on that bang that right, you go down that very long straight road, and you see the traffic lights above the road where you think they're there, because just down there is the Grand Prix circuit in the world. And in a few months' time, you're full of fans. And you see that little sort of red edge sign with Francorchamps, and you think everything in the world is right. And that sense of well-being and feel-good is brilliant. So anything that creates feel-good, Francorchamps sign is one. When you get to Kelberg or Gerolstein on the way to the ring, you kind of think, I'm sort of there. The last bit of the journey is just the scenic bit where we can talk about what we're going to do when we get there and who's going to go in the car first. And that's just an unbelievable. And every time I see actually the Gerolstein fizzy, semi-fizzy water, I have that.
They've moved the factory, by the way. They've moved the factory.
Have they?
Yeah, sadly, the bottling bit.
So, and I guess because I'm such a Cornwall lover, every time you go down the A30, those who know it, there's the Tamar is obviously the border, the boundary between Devon and Cornwall. Do you know the Tamar River starts, you imagine, because there's like the Bodmin Moor and Dartmoor, you think it'd be somewhere in the middle. The Tamar starts literally about 10 miles from the Devon border. You think it must be going uphill, but no, it's so high, the Devon side, it goes all in. I'm glad I had the opportunity to share this.
Can we tell you I've got dinner? We only asked you what road sign you liked.
Can you choose
when you
one?
come down the A30 and you see that Kernow Cornwall sign,
that one?
That's possibly my favourite.
Okay, right. Lads, he's chosen one. I'm going to I'm pressing pause on Cooper. No, pause. Right. Neil Clifford.
Mine's a very simple one. It's the national speed limit. I think I live in the countryside now, and you have all the bloody drama of the 30s and the 40s, even the 50s. But when that national speed limit, that simple white with the black diagonal, 60 mile an hour, unless it's a dual carriageway with a central reservation.
I've been on that course.
Have you done speed awareness?
Speed awareness course number 7. And obviously my favourite sign is demonstrating that I can now go faster. I can change down and off I go. I think that's just a lovely sign, very simple, and gives me a little tickle of joy every time I drive past one.
Is it fair also to say that from the early stages of driving, that sign, because it didn't have a number on it, represented something less tangible? It was more, for me, it was freedom. It just meant
possibilities.
It was a sign that said, on your way, off you go.
It's like leaving prison.
Yeah, well, I would, yeah, no comment. So
every day is a school day when I'm on here, Neil, with you.
Yeah. Manish, what's your favourite road sign?
Have any of you had a quick YouTube of the Shimla Road in India? It's terrifying. It's literally Simla. If you just look at the Shimla Road, I was born there. I mean, in Shimla, and it's just one of these things. It's completely terrifying. It's just a road that's literally cut out of the rock going up these sheer mountains, loads of them that there's no barrier to stop you going down. When you see a truck passing another car, you're just shutting your eyes, and half the time the top bits of it are covered in snow anyway. So I found that the Himalayan road signs by the Border Roads Organization, they paint these big rocks with a yellow background and in black lettering so that truck drivers and other people should follow some rules. I thought these were great. I'm going to have to do this in an Indian accent, which I'm allowed to, but I think these are great. Little couplets. Be Mr. Late, better than late Mr. Okay. How about this one for truck drivers?
Are you allowed to do that accent?
Yeah. He is. He's Indian.
Okay.
If you sleep, your family will weep. Okay. That sounds great. I shouldn't laugh, but I'm laughing with you. Love the neighbor, but not while driving. Okay, which is just this gives sexism a little tiny whip. Darling, do not nag me as I am driving. Instead, turn your head and enjoy nature charming.
These are all winners, Manish.
This one's one I absolutely love. This is for the racing drivers and all of you. Curves are blind and sharp. Drive your vehicle like playing a harp.
Like that.
These are genius.
Very good.
Oh, this is absolute. I tell you what, I don't fancy being Edward Lovett following that. What's yours going to be? A 50?
ULEZ, that's my favourite one.
Go on, Edward. Sorry, I really have doubt your Arsenal pass there. I'm sorry.
So I've got a few. So like yours, Chris, one of my favourite ones is with the old squiggly sign ahead, curvy roads ahead, because I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun then. Yeah. I didn't go to America. Actually, I went when I was very young, but then I didn't go for a very long time. And the first time I saw a Route 66 sign put a smile on my face is something and I read about, and it's just such an iconic sign. Also in America, if you're driving away from the cities, I'm sure more than just churches have these, but they have these church billboards with and they change the signs on them all the time, and a lot of them have quite a lot of wit, and there's some rude ones, but a yawn is a silent scream for coffee. And let's get rid of what was the other one? I can't remember it. I should have written that one down. And the other one in the UK, which I'm not sure quite why I like it, and why they observe it in such a way. But as you get close to Birmingham, there are massive blue boards on the top of the motorway that just say the North.
I like the North.
And whenever I see it, I just think, thanks
I like
for telling me that.
Yeah, I like that one. It's kind of. It's out there. Yeah, I like that one.
It's not a small one. It sort of dominates the whole motorway.
I'm going to do a two, I have two here that have just come to me whilst I was listening to you guys talk about it. One is obviously the de-restrict sign on the Autobahn, which is curiously the same as the national speed limit sign, but the bar the other way. When you see that, the first time you see that and you think to yourself, I can go as fast as I want. Yeah. Really?
I've never been on there.
Well, we're taking you there.
We need a road trip.
The other one, you remember back in the 90s, if you were heading eastbound on the M4, the first distance sign after Reading services said London about 40-something miles, 50 miles. And someone just put, and then there's London and wrote thing afterwards. And it said, it's a London thing for about 3 years. Everyone just left it there. So it was just brilliant. I loved it. It just relaxed me. It's the London thing. Okay, let's move on. Now, here we go.
This one, my favourite town in Switzerland.
Okay, Neil Clifford, for those of us that aren't watching this, has just held up a sign, which I think is in America, or is it
Switzerland?
Switzerland.
It's Switzerland, and it's the name. It's a place called Unter, and it's spelt with a C. Okay? It's a place called Unter, and it begins with a C. So here we go. We're moving on. This is a good one. This is. What's your guilty crush of a car? Which is a car that you like, but you really can't ever admit to people that you like it?
We've surely all got the same car here.
New or used? You're chomping at the bit here, love it. What are you going to have?
A Rolls-Royce Cullinan.
Oh, yes, I like them.
Honestly,
how can I turn him off?
We all wanted to hate them. Chris did his great PR move with Rolls-Royce and now's never invited back to drive a Rolls-Royce again. But I was at Goodwood whenever it was, 3 years ago or something like that. And they took us off-roading in one of them. I've got to say, it's a remarkable thing. So
I think it's very spec dependent.
Yeah, it is.
Neil, you're not allowed one. Neil, you are not allowed one.
I wouldn't. To be honest, I wouldn't buy one.
And I wouldn't buy one, but it's a guilty thing. And
I think it's quite cool. You just need to live in LA or Miami.
Right, Neil Clifford, go now. Neil Clifford, redeem yourself. Neil Clifford, redeem yourself now.
As I've said before, my first job was on the YTS scheme in Fiat Cannon Garage in Portsmouth. So I have a deep, deep love affair with anything Fiat. The shitter, the better, frankly. And therefore, the Fiat Multipla.
Oh, they're great cars.
Well, the new one, the 6-seat, ugly face. I'd love one. I think they're magic. And I'm embarrassed that I haven't bought one because I shouldn't be influenced by other people's opinions that they're shit.
There's still Roman taxis, aren't there? You go to the budget airport, you still get a Multipla into Rome.
There's loads of them in Palermo. And when a cab comes to pick you up, I'm like, oh, brilliant. And I was in one recently when we did the old Targa Florio, and it's just a cool thing. There's 3 of you in the front and 3 of you in the back, and it's got all that headroom and it's got all that glass. I think it's a magic car, and but I've not bought one because I thought people would take the piss out of me if I had one.
You should buy a nice
original...
private number plate to put on it. But
yeah, I should.
1NC on it or something like that.
I went on the original international launch of that car. That's how old I am. Chris Cooper was chomping at the bit there. What have you got to say, Chris?
Well, so I was going to say on the Cullinan, it is spec dependent, and the spec I would like mine in is for it to remain in its constituent parts in the factory. I do have a guilty secret, and it's much worse. I actually think the multiple is a really clever idea. So my guilty secret, my guilty crush, has 6 doors.
Oh, is it?
Cullinan's only got 5.
Is it a grocer?
No, worse. It's a mini Clubman estate.
No,
I like them. I think they're cool.
I know I shouldn't like them. I just really do.
the new ones.
Yeah.
Well, the current model one, yeah.
I think the original one was because the original one.
That's the Countryman.
The Countryman's the little four-wheel drive.
And they've done a sporty version, haven't they, with a bit more power?
So you wouldn't have that. That's just trying too hard. You want some sort of sensible spec, clear glass, obs.
Yeah.
Not too many chintzy bits on it. I just like the idea of it. And I quite like the Mini. It's quite a nice small thing. And it's not bad to drive. And the Clubman just looks like, when I'm older and, sort of.
Older,
yeah, I know everyone would think.
I owe you an apology because you shouldn't be answering this question. Because how can you have guilty pleasures when you've owned back-to-back 6 Series convertibles?
Well, this was my suggestion.
You're showing that you're a man without shame. You don't care, do you? You don't care how you look.
Anyway, chat days.
A withering silence.
Manish, what's your guilty 6 Series? Sorry, what's your guilty pleasure?
Anyone who knows me could never see me in this car, but I've seen them on the road exactly twice, both times, I think in the States, and it will be a Lamborghini Cheetah.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember those?
Is that an LM002?
It's a 002.
Yeah, exactly, a 002, the armoured, absolute gangster vehicle. Can you just see me getting out of that like Al Pacino in Heat, going into that club, being frisked?
Rambo Lambo.
Give me what you got.
Yeah.
Lambo. Well, you can have that as a guilty pleasure all day long. I just think I'd look cool in that.
They're bloody cool.
I've got a guilty pleasure that I'm not willing to share this much beyond where I'm sitting now, but I'm about to, because it goes against everything I say. It marks me out as a total hypocrite. This question is about, are you a hypocrite? And the answer is, we're all hypocrites. Okay.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Whenever I see an RS Q8, I think I'd really want one of them. I just think it looks really good. I think the proportions are absolutely bang on. I'm sure it drives really well. It's fast. It's got loads of room. And I think it's just a really good looking
Not the
car.
Q7, the Q8.
The RS Q8. I just think it looks really good. Yeah.
Don't you take the piss out of an X6 and a
I do. I'm a total. An X6 to me looks like bum water. This looks fantastic.
Yeah, a Q8 is for people who've thought bullying people in an X6 wasn't hard enough.
You're trying really hard to counter the 6 Series thing, but it hasn't quite worked.
I think with those selections, we should all try and get one of them, and we'll turn up at Salvino for a coffee in the morning with Neil. And I'm guessing I'm the only person that won't be allowed in.
You're the only person that won't be allowed the car, because Rolls-Royce will tell you to foxtrot Oscar because you work with me.
You've got to have an Italian car to get in Salvino. It's got to be Italian.
We can't invite ourselves to
I'd be fine in my Cheetah. I would be fine in my Cheetah. I love it.
There's one in the UK as well. We can't invite ourselves to Neil's cool coffee joint in a load of shit SUVs. Here we go, and a Mini. So, next one. Is there a motoring skill you wish you had? I mean, I'm impish at the best of times, but I could really start taking the piss out of people here, but I won't. I'm going to be modest, and I'm not going to say anything about Chris Cooper and Barry's Nürburgring, because that would be childish. Nor will I talk about Edward Levitt trying to use a mobile phone and drive a racing car at 40 miles an hour at the same time at Silverstone. So none of these things matter, because I'm just being friendly and lovely, because I'm the host of this show and I want everyone to be happy. Edward, tell me what it's like to invert an M3 down the Hanger Straight in the middle of the night. Sorry, is there a skill you wish you had in motoring that you don't have?
Yes, to read the insurance contract before I went into that fucking race.
Oh, you are a good sport. Right, go on then. Let's get back to it. I've been a bit cruel there. Carry on.
So I'm guessing 25 years ago, someone came to Bristol in a Z3 M Coupe, and they took me out for a drive in it. They were a journalist, not a very good one. Shmee's better. And they decided to show me how to power slide the M Coupe around one of the roundabouts in Cribbs Causeway. I was very impressed and have spent the last 25 years trying to do it myself, sometimes successfully, many times unsuccessfully, and quite a few times catastrophically.
I'm just phoning my lawyer. Hold on.
So I would quite like for someone to turn up at Cribbs Causeway again and give me a little bit more time to teach me when to lift off or not to lift off.
Mainly not.
No, and I think a lot of people say this, you know, being able to drift very well really is an art form, and a lot of the best racing drivers don't know how to do it.
No, it's
counterintuitive.
You
know, Marino talks about it like he just doesn't know how to do it. And so, you know, being able to drift doesn't necessarily make you quick, but it is a real talent. And when you see it being done well and done what looks like it's a very easy thing to do.
I think that journalist you're talking about, I can sort of imagine who that might be, because I can remember, because that skill you talk about, it's very, very, it's unique almost, isn't it? And can you imagine how one would feel when challenged by that journalist to say, if you can do 2 circles of a steering pad in the 997 Gen 1 GT3 RS, which is the hardest car ever to, never having been on a steering pad, never having done more than that opposite lot, to be told, if you can do that, because it's impossible, I will take you to the Hotel de Vin restaurant in Bristol and buy you the most expensive bottle of wine on that line, only for all of the foregoing to come to pass and then not get the most expensive bottle of wine. But that's not the motoring skill I wanted to talk about.
No, you did get the meal, but when you ordered a bottle of Prix, which even back then was about 550 quid, and I was earning about 10 grand a year, you didn't get that either.
No. So the skill I would like.
You're not allowed to interrupt there. You did do it. It was a great demonstration of balance and natural skill. And the next time, and this is the bit where I'm going to call him out, we'll do it between 2 walls. On a damp road, and then we'll see how big your testicles really.
I don't want to do that. Spanners. I would love to have the skill to fix stuff. So my old 1963 Mini started and then died on the road. I was just going to see Neil the other week. I had to go back and get something modern that worked, and I was really frustrated. I thought, you know what? I can check whether there's petrol in it. I can check the spark leads. I thought all those skills I have when I was a student, they've all gone. So there's the motoring skill I would like to have sort of back is to be able to fix stuff and change a roll bar on a Caterham and without having to ask Andy Parker and Team Parker Racing to do it for me. So proper spannering skills, fixing stuff, sorting. I'd like to have that.
Who wants to know the result of the cricket?
Oh, come on. We must
Come on.
We just won.
Oh my God, I can just see it. Oh my days.
That's bloody good.
Well done.
Yeah.
Broad is dancing.
Broad is dancing. It's
He's
fantastic.
actually dancing. Oh, bless him.
Sorry to interrupt there. So here we go. So Chris, he's absolutely, God, he's just taking the words out of my mouth. Fix stuff. Manish, what do you think? What's your skill you'd love to have?
It's, with me, totally theoretical, but I had a little crack at it when I was go-karting in a kind of minor way. You know the thing that Senna was supposed to be able to do, the blipping the throttle?
Yes.
As you come out of a corner, just finding that perfect little bit of grip and then going boom, and off you go. I'd love to be able to do that. I'd love to understand what it is to use your right foot so quickly and so intermittently that you can find the absolute maximum level of grip of a tire given any angle of steering, not oversteer the car, not understeer the car, just catch a grip perfectly and come out of a corner like that. That would be unreal.
I've almost thought that was a conspiracy for a while now, that he was doing it so that other people would copy him, and he knew full well it was rubbish. Because I just
no, what I did see was I spoke to Bob Dance. I met him years and years ago. He was obviously very senior mechanic at Lotus even at the time, and he said to me that Senna had worked out that was the way to get around turbo lag.
That's
his way of doing it. And then he said later on, though, he used
doing it.
Normally aspirated cars. I mean, it worked. It worked for him.
Yeah, extraordinary.
Neil Clifford.
Mine's very simple. I'd love to be able to know how to enjoy a track day.
We could talk about that.
You evil bastard, Neil Clifford. You evil bastards.
No, but I mean it sincerely.
It wasn't on the agenda. Don't talk about it.
No, I know, but it's my guilty pleasure. What is it? This is a pleasure I don't have that I'd like to have.
Yeah.
And I go to track days and I spend all this money and I've got the helmet and the gear, and I enjoy talking to people and having a cup of tea and having a bacon sandwich and looking at other people's cars and being there and not being at work. But the moment I get into the car, I'm like, I hope I fucking just don't die and I hope I get out soon. Because I can't remember the track, even if I pay the instructor 300 quid to be with me for half a day that tells me, did you see that fucking, I don't know, blue portable toilet 100 meters from the corner? That should be your braking zone. I can't even remember which fucking way the track goes, let alone the toilet. So all I'm desperate is to just get out. I'm not enjoying this. My head's gone like a radish. I'm holding the steering wheel too tight. I don't want to be the dick who crashes. I've got some knob up my ass flashing in a Caterham, and I just want to get off the track. And I really would love to be able to enjoy it, but I don't.
We're going to help you with that. We're also going to make sure that you never commentate on a live motor race with phrases like "there's a knob up my ass," because that
and I hope I enjoy it.
That would be a short-lived career, Neil Clifford.
We will we'll try and help you in September if Chris has secured the date.
Now,
I'm with Chris Cooper on fixing stuff. I've got a couple of friends who are really handy spanners, and I'm more in awe of them than I am Bill Gates. If I see someone that can work on a motor vehicle with that sort of accuracy and efficiency, I immediately translate their skills into other areas of life. I think they can solve the third world debt. They should be running the UN. So I've got a mate called Shippy, who I mention now and again. He's proper character, but watching him when he sets to work on something, or when he starts to just try and understand diagnose a problem, just watching him do it, it's just logic. And it's amazing. It's such a God-given skill, and it should be rewarded with 10 times the money because it just makes your life easier. But there's one skill that comes that is beyond that for me, that I'd do an awful lot to be able to do it properly. And
journalism.
That is writing. I wish. No, I'm joking. It is wheelie, a proper sports bike wheelie all the way up through the gears, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Having been through Isle of Man, the way they just send it on the back wheel, maybe partly because I can do it, I think wheelies are cooler than sliding cars around.
Weren't you going to go and do a wheelie school recently?
I couldn't. I went to this really, really lovely woman I was going to go to the wheelie school with, and I couldn't.
There's a thing called a wheelie school.
There is. Two of my guys have been to do it here. Yeah.
And they put like stabilizers on the back, so you can't flip it. You can still flip it.
Oh, give me a go.
Yeah, we're going to wheelie school, but I just think it's so cool. There was a bloke who came down, if you know where Clifton Village is in Bristol, there's a bloke came down the back wheel right through the main bit on the back on a scooter the other week. And I know this is completely wrong and he shouldn't be doing it, but I found myself involuntarily clapping. And I just stood there going like that, like this, just clapping his wheelie. And the bloke next to me went, "You shouldn't be endorsing that." And I went, "I know, but it's just it's a bodily reaction.
Look at it.
Something that cool, I have to celebrate it." So for me, it's the wheelie.
I could do a grifter.
Yeah, I'm looking
at that again.
I'm not very good on a push
grifter. or even a chopper.
You could definitely do a chopper.
Wheelie a chopper.
Wheelies on a chopper was so easy.
I could wheelie a chopper.
Yeah, same.
Not the 5-speed one with the racing handlebars, the normal chopper.
Yeah.
The bicycle. The bicycle.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah.
With moving on. We're making good time here, so Edward can make it to his dinner date.
Oh, yes.
So we're going to move on to the 2-card garage, which is...
We've missed one, but carry on.
The most lost you've ever been.
We're going to do that. We're going to do that. Let me just... I'm just going to have to answer that quickly. This is the CEO of Singer. I'm in the middle of recording my podcast. I'm going to say the word Singer now, so you get even more famous.
Oh, my favourite car.
And we'll speak to you later on. Bye-bye. The second word was off.
Hold on, we can want to Zemelo.
My dinner date.
Bernie Eccleston. Hold on.
All my things are linked up so that it comes up on my screen. I couldn't get rid of it. What is the most lost you've ever been? This is literal, not figurative. Manish Pandey.
All right. My son's godfather is a pediatric plastic surgeon in Oxford, as I think I've mentioned. So I think the journey from John Radcliffe Hospital to Middlebarton, where my in-laws live, is probably 6 or 7 miles, something like that. Might be a bit longer. Is it a bit longer?
Quite straightforward.
Yeah, it's the most lost I've ever been, because I have an admission. As well as only owning an Audi A4 Avant from 2007, I can't read maps at all.
You can't be our friend.
Oh, I know. I knew this was my last one.
We'll teach you.
Okay. It was a nightmare. He just said, put the fucking map on your lap and we'll be there in 20 minutes. We were 2 hours late for a barbecue. We arrived 5 hours late for a barbecue on 7 miles of road. I just kept going, I think we go right here. I think we go left here. It's just, I'd like to say this was 400 years ago. This was about 10 years ago. I mean, the whole thing is, I don't do sense of direction. I just don't. When I was at Cambridge, I used to walk out of college with this guy called Rick Caesar, who is now, he's an ocular plastic surgeon. And we used to walk out of college. If you went left, you'd end up at the medical faculty. And for 6 weeks, I used to go to the medical faculty with Rick. The one day, because I had a very hot girlfriend, obviously I didn't go knock on his door. I got out of college, I turned right, and it took me 20 minutes to realize I was in an economics lecture. I went to the wrong
Perish the thought.
I literally have no sense of direction.
So actually, your whole life is a story of being lost. We should have asked you the one time you actually got there.
Well, exactly.
So we'll ask that next time.
And her name was, and no.
Okay, Chris Cooper, what's the most lost you've been?
You shouldn't get lost. There's no excuse for it.
Next.
There's no excuse for it. Because you got maps. I have been lost. And one of them involved somebody, my then girlfriend, we were going to somewhere between Barnstaple and Linton in North Devon with some friends it was a Friday night, driving down the M4 in my Mark 1 facelift MR2. And kind of first weekend we've been away. And we were she got so lost, I actually got irritated with her. And it was our first kind of date weekend away. And she said, we got there, said, this is kind of our first, and I'm, and you're irritated. And I was really irritated. I said, you should never get lost. There's no excuse for being lost. If you know where north is, and if you're on a road, you can say, I'm on that road, there's north. Somehow we both got completely lost. The other reason why you can get lost, but shouldn't, is sat-navs that don't point north. They should be banned. Sat-navs should always point north. Because if you say to somebody, I'm trying to find you, where are you? And you say, which way are you pointing on the screen?
And it's all moving.
Said, but north is to the top of your screen. No, the arrow's just going, have you got your sat-nav set to north? Oh, I didn't know you could do that. I have all those people shot. You should never get lost. So the worst time was in North Devon because, well, we were both a bit distracted. So yeah, but I don't think you should ever get lost, even with a sat nav or a map. Maps are great. I love maps. I
love a map. Yeah,
I love them. I love a bit of cartography. Really, really good. I once worked with Ordnance Survey. You know what Ordnance Survey is called? Ordnance Survey.
Chris is ignoring you. He's now looking at the
You do know
cricket
why it's
on his
called- why
phone
do you
or
want again?
texting Singer.
We need
No,
to
I'm
know
not.
what Chris
I'm not.
explains as to why Ordnance Survey is called Ordnance Survey.
No.
Well, it's to do with ordnance. It used to be part of the MOD and sort of, stuff.
So it's not standing on landmines?
Something like that. So maps are great. I love maps. So you shouldn't get lost.
Okay. But you did
But
once.
I have been, and it was North Devon, and I probably blew my weekend because of it.
I'm actually researching my answer here because something else has cropped up there. That's what I was doing. Neil Clifford.
On the 15th of August, 1977, I left Portsmouth with my mother in a Mark I 4-door Escort, very rare.
That's a rare thing.
PCR 924M, £2,000 at Penny Lennox. And we were heading to Kirkcaldy because
Good pronunciation.
For some reasons, I've got relations in Kirkcaldy. And we ended up in Exeter because, and I don't really know how it happened. How old was I? I was 10, me and my mum in this little Escort. And obviously there were no sat navs. And I think you used to go to the AA and they would give you a route.
They would.
They'd print it out for you.
They would.
So she gave me this stack of paper. It wasn't a map, it was a stack of paper with the instructions. And this was before the M25 or whatever. And you sort of head up the A34 and I think you were doing a left onto the M4 and then M5, but we did a left onto the A303. So we did a left about 10 miles too early.
You went too soon.
And then the next minute I saw, "Welcome to Devon." And I said to my mum, "Are we supposed to be in Devon?" And she said, "No." And we stopped and we asked, and we stopped in a petrol station and we were, "Oh no, you're fucking gone the wrong way." Anyway, the exhaust then fell off on the M6 just by Kendal. But my mum, bless her, she's not around now, is as hard as nails. So we had some string in her handbag. And she must have been, how old was she? She was in her 50s at this point. Got under the car on the M5 at night and tied the exhaust back on with fucking string. And we got to Kirkcaldy at about midnight in this little Escort 1300L. And the reason why I know it's the 15th of August is because the next day, Elvis died. And I remember that on the TV, it was like the biggest news ever, wasn't it? And I was stuck in this sort of 70s room full of orange cord in Kirkcaldy, watching this black and white telly about Elvis's death. So that was, that's my, sticks in my memory like no tomorrow, being lost on the way to Kirkcaldy in an Escort Mark 1.
You can follow that one, Ed, but it was too good. Mine's going to be crap after that.
You keep giving me that.
Well, I'm lobbing you the hospital pass.
Chris just mentioning Ordnance Survey, just because to be honest with you, when this came up, I don't think I've ever been lost in a car unintentionally, because I'm quite good at sort of knowing where I'm going.
That's a remarkable phrase. I have to just digest that one.
Lost in a car unintentionally. But when Chris was talking about Ordnance Survey, I at school, I used to do the national championships of orienteering, and you obviously have to read a map very quickly, and then you have to go and run as quickly as you can to that next point where you clip your card. And obviously, if you realise where you've got to, where you think that clipping of the card point comes, and you're like, the clip's not here, I'm in the wrong place. And then you look at your map, but you actually don't really know which direction you ran in. You just know it is the wrong direction. Finding where you are on an Ordnance Survey map to try and run back to where you think you should be is very... So I got lost a lot in that. I wasn't very good at it.
Orienteering
I was quick, but I wasn't very good at it.
Orienteering is like rally driving without the car.
Yeah, exactly. It was. I loved it. I don't know if they still do it.
How do you read I know this. How do you read the six-digit reference on an Ordnance Survey map? Which number do you read first, the vertical or horizontal? Who knows?
Horizontal.
Presumably you should read
Tell us,
horizontal.
Christopher.
No, it's horizontal first.
I remember this in Scouts. You walk in the house and then you go upstairs.
Yeah.
So it's the verticals and then the horizontals.
I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you a car story of unintentionally again. But I bought So I was moving from the UK to the south of France, and I needed a car.
Which time? First, second, or third?
Third time, I think. So I needed to buy a car. I just got back from the US, sold the house, got most of the contents of the house into the removal truck.
He's a disaster.
I need to buy something cheap that I can drive down there. That doesn't. I'll just leave it. Just shut up and let me tell the story. So I go down to BCA in Bristol.
Oh yes,
yeah.
We're going to talk about
have myself some fried bread and beans, and then go and sit in front of the rostrum and see if I can find myself a bargain. Obviously, needed to be an estate car and ideally reliable, because I wouldn't be forgiven by my wife or family if it broke on the way to the south of France. So I bought a 520 diesel M Sport for about £7,200 or something like that. It'd done 120,000 miles, but it looked fine. And it was quite cold the day I bought it, so I didn't need to use the air conditioning. Drove it home, and then a few days later, got the family in it, got it loaded up, and off we went to Dover or Folkestone to drive down to the south of France. And you go to Reims, and then you head down and after Reims, you need to concentrate. So you get the right road to go to Troyes and Dijon. Yep. And I was just not concentrating and went straight on towards Strasbourg. And that junction between Reims and Strasbourg, that first junction you get to is about 53 kilometers before you can turn round. By this stage, when we got to Reims, my wife hadn't quite realized. It was getting hot in sort of mid-afternoon. It was about 2 p.m. or something like that. It was definitely starting to warm up, and we might have turned the fan on a bit, but she hadn't quite realized that the air conditioning wasn't working.
Oh.
For the 110-mile correction round trip, the temperature started to nudge up into the 35s in the middle
in every sense.
The summer. That was a painful 100-kilometer detour to have.
Interesting. Does a missed junction constitute getting lost? In some respects, it could do, because quite often when you scramble and get frantic afterwards to recover the mistake, you get lost, don't you? I think it is possible to get lost in the modern age. Anyone that's ever driven in Dubai or had the misfortune to drive there will, I'm sure, confirm that place is impossible to drive around. It really is. It's a central motorway that runs down the spine of Dubai, and it isn't logical, and you cannot come on and get off the way you do on a normal motorway. I wrote a story for Jalopnik, which we'll put the link up to now, which is called "Getting Lost in Dubai Can Make a Porsche 918 Hell on Earth."
Oh, I remember, yeah.
Where's my small violin?
I had a Porsche 918 when they were new, and I drove past my hotel. If I'd stopped, I could have lobbed a rock into my bedroom window. 2 hours later, I was nowhere near that fucking hotel room. And it's the closest I've come to having a full breakdown. I definitely cried. I was, when you just don't know what to do with yourself. It was utterly traumatic. And I'm going to put the story up now. It's lots of swearing in it, but there you go. I really did get so lost. I hope you enjoy reading about my pain. But Dubai it's not like a normal place with the roads. You can get, even with sat nav, you can get so lost. It's just not worth driving there at all. Terrible. Right, moving on. The 2-car garage for this week, as set by, who was it set?
Clever Jason.
Clever Jason.
Clever Jason. There we go. Here we go. I like this. After passing your driving test in 1989, you spent months with motoring magazines, cross-referencing insurance groups with 0 to 60 times for cars under £2,000. This excitement culminated in your dad buying your 1.3-litre Mark III Escort for your 18th birthday, which you then proceeded to mod to look like an XR3i, as you would. Now it's your turn to put your hand in your pocket. You've 2 teenage daughters who've just passed their tests and a budget of £20,000. These are generous times. You want 2 cars for them to share. They want one cool car to stand out from the others, from the other kids, and the other safe enough that you, and more importantly, your wife, would be happy for them to take on the motorway to drive to and from uni. The £20,000 also needs to include the first year's insurance. We've brought it back down to earth, girls and boys.
I'm going to go first, and I'm going to leave you, if that's okay, to finish off. Is that all right?
I don't like that phrase. I don't like that phrase at the end, but you can use it. Let's, Edward Lovett, let's hear what you've got to say.
Right. Well, Clever Jason does like his cars, and he also likes racing. So we're going to have to balance this safety side and the fun side. So the safety side is going to be something like a 2018 Polo 1 litre Blue Tech, which you can pick up for a pretty fair bargain of, £5,000 to £6,000. They obviously need some fun. And as our rules in the past have said, you need an open top car in your 2.
That's gone out the window. Neil Clifford shat on that last week. So he did
indeed.
He shat all over it.
As I went to drive this wicked little thing 2 weeks ago, the fun car is going to be an MX-5, an early one, so for about £4,000 or £5,000.
I love it.
And then we're going for fun to drive it up to Winchester, and we're going to pop a brand new Jaguar V6 engine in it. That's going to be the fun car. Donutting around the campus at the university, track days with Dad at the weekends. I think that's a good combination.
Budget police are over you like a rash at the moment, love it.
No, that's not. It's within budget. It's $7,000, that engine is.
How much to insure the car?
Yeah. And with Chris Cooper's newfound skills on the spanner, he can pop down to Clever Jason's and help him fit it.
He
Possibly
can
go wrong.
And Neil Clifford's offering to personally underwrite the insurance.
Just before I go, the first day they take delivery of the car, they're going to want to play some music in there. So that will be my music choice, which is Adventure of a Lifetime by Coldplay.
Oh,
Very good.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah. Now, the Grey Goose Martinis will not wait. I must depart. And I look forward to hearing your 2-car garages on Friday.
Let's talk about him now. Okay.
Yes.
Off you go.
Bye.
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 Missing you. Not really.
No, I'm not at all. No.
I am. I'm always saying, people say I'm nasty to him. You're the ones that are nasty to him. I just give him, I give him a friendly amount of shit. Neil Clifford, what's your 2-car garage?
I don't know what it's like to have 2 daughters. Clearly, these daughters must be the same age, and they therefore might be twins. They're twins, right? He doesn't say twins, but they must be twins. And they hate each other, in my head.
Your kids wouldn't hate each other, Neil. If you had
No,
2
they
daughters,
wouldn't. But I don't own twins. I don't have twins. Whoa. So I'm in my imagination.
The Fritz all there.
Whatever I buy one, they will be jealous of the other one.
Yeah, that's why I got to share them.
So, no, but they're not sharing either.
Okay.
They won't. They're not.
You're on your own.
I don't think the sharing thing really works.
Okay.
Certainly, I've got 2 sons, and there's a mass brawl if they're sharing sneakers, let alone cars. Yeah. So I've decided to buy 2 exactly the same cars, but with a small twist. I.e., I'm back on form. One is a cabriolet, and one is a coupe. So it's a bit Alan Clark, winter car, summer car.
Oh, you've done me completely here. It's exactly my idea. You utter bastard, Clifford. I'm going to fucking work now, aren't I?
But most importantly, what are these cars?
Wanker.
These cars are...
Wanker.
Thank you. And I recently bought one of these, and it was quite funny because it's one of Chris's subjects that will come up in the future. An Audi TT Mark 1.
Yeah.
Now, the 180, not the 225.
Yeah.
But you've got to go. That's simple. We can all go and buy those. There's millions of them. Most of them are shit, smell of fags and dog turds. But you go and buy 2 amazing, both with baseball leather. Now, the baseball leather, as we know, is a very difficult spec. I found one. I bought one, a green one with baseball leather. The error that I made was a cabriolet. and you looked a bit of a knob driving it, to be honest. I should have gone for the coupe. So I've gone Mark 1, TT, 180, both with baseball leather. I suppose silver with the tan baseball. One's a cabriolet, one's a coupe, and they can share them. They can have the joy of hardtop on the winter and have the joy of the cabriolet in the summer. The mother is going to drive them in the bloody 4x4 to university with all the shit in the back anyway. And they don't need a car at university because they're always pissed. So the cars will just stay on the drive for 3 years. But at least you've not had an argument between your two daughters.
Don't rub it in. Chris Cooper.
So it's very. I read this carefully, maybe more than others did, but it said.
What does this mean? You're going to give us 7 answers rather than 5?
At least 7. One's got to be safe enough to take both of them to university or wherever. So it's very hard to walk past a Golf or a Polo or a Merc A class, something like that. So 16 plate Golf 1.4 TSI match, really high. It's a great car. But I only got there once I'd walked past a 2006 Audi A8 Quattro W16 with 51,000 miles on it, warranted by a fine motor vehicle purveyor from Wallasey and Merseyside, for which wanted 9,900 and something pounds for this clear glass, beautiful, nice, simple spec, no bling. But I thought, no, okay, I'll have to have the Golf because I'm having that Audi.
Surely it's W12, not W16.
Sorry, say W16, W12.
Yes.
Normally
A
aspirated.
Bugatti engined Audi.
I'll tell you an
W12.
interesting fact about that car. That's the only car I've ever broken down in on the way to Le Mans.
Is it?
Oh.
Okay.
A
So we'll
new
stick with the
press
Golf
car.
then.
Take the Golf.
So,
New press car.
a fun car.
I was in a convoy, stuck in traffic on the old Peripherik, and my friend Colin Goodwin was in his handmade, which he built himself, Chevrolet El Camino, and I was behind in a brand new press W12. The Camino idled perfectly for 2 hours, and the Audi shit itself. So don't have the Audi.
Okay, won't have that. So it's a Golf. So then fun car. I too looked at, boys and I did this afternoon, with quite a lot of fun actually, 2012 Mazda MX-5.
Yeah.
Quite a good thing. And then, but I actually, you can get a BMW Z3, 1.9, about 6 grand. The coolest thing though, because it's got to be fun. And an MX-5, you might be trying too hard. 1967 Morris Minor convertible.
Oh, they're lovely.
I think completely inoffensive. No one's going to think you're trying too hard or trying to be too cool or flash. So Golf 1.4 match, 67 Morris Minor convertible, probably a lot of it in insurance. That's what I think. So I'd be thinking about, I mean, my two boys could probably share because, you know, they get on all right. But that's what we do. I think it'd be a great choice. Great two-car.
Chris, what's your idea?
I'm so disappointed in you, Neil Clifford. I'll tell you what my idea was. My idea was to build a further bond with you and say, do you know that motoring rider we love, Alan Clark? I want the idea of a summer car and a winter car. And it was even going to be a fucking Audi as well.
No,
I was going to buy an A3 cab and an A3 normal A3.
You don't like
three-door.
TTs.
And they were going to be called the summer car and the winter car. Anyhow, that's gone right out the window. So this is what I'm going to have. Okay, thinking on my feet. I'm going to speak to my insurance agent. He's going to do me a deal because I'm going to remove all my insurance from them unless they help me out here. I've bought a 100,000 mile Golf GTI. It's a Mark 7. It's a 13 plate. And I can get insurance on that. You wouldn't believe it, but you can. If
It's
you
not a Mark 7, that's a Mark 6.
No, 213 is a Mark 7. One of us is a motoring journalist, one of us is a management consultant. So the
How
second
much would you
car,
like to wager on
second car is going to be a. Would you believe?
Right, it is.
Because I think this is cool. It's a Mark 1 Mercedes SLK, which I think is one of the best bits of styling they ever did.
Mark 1 was nice.
I think the Mark 1, just a 230 compressor, but it's been kept by a lovely woman down near Bournemouth. It's done 58,000 miles. It's worth nothing, really, but we're going to get all minted up and we're going to love it. It's safe. It looks cool. It's nice and compact. Electric roof still works. I've had to work really fast there. Rescue me, for fuck's sake, Manish Pandey.
I don't think I can. I did it the other way around. I thought the insurance clause was the interesting clause in this. And
yeah, we've all sort of ignored that.
Well, I know it just got me thinking, you know, how much driving has changed in the last 30 years. And it's very, very difficult. My my brother-in-law is a cardiologist. He has two very, very nice girls, Hannah and Maddie. One's at medical school. The other one is working to be a lawyer. And I remember he went through all of this himself. You know, how do you buy your girls safe cars? How do you insure those cars? And it was the first time I encountered the insurance black box.
Yep.
And again, you know, never heard of such a thing. And I couldn't believe poor Hannah just passed her driving test. And for the first year had a black box in her, like, you know, I can't remember what he got her at the time. And they would drive the car, as in my sister would drive the car or Jonathan would drive the car sometimes. And you would just see them hunched over the steering wheel doing exactly 19 miles an hour and 20 mile an hour zones, 29 miles an hour and 30 miles. Never took it onto the motorway just in case, because the insurance company was absolutely logging every single thing these young ladies would do, because if they didn't, they wouldn't get insured in the future. And you just realize we didn't have that monkey on our back at all, did we?
How many accidents are caused by the nervousness that's derived from those boxes?
Oh gosh, I mean,
I'm like that with speed limits. Yeah,
most accidents.
I mean, it's that thing, isn't it? When you drive looking at the speedometer instead of out of the window, and it takes a while to develop that intuition. You know, it does take a while to work out, oh, when I drive on a road this big, I'm doing 30. When I'm on the motorway, that speed is actually 70, and they feel exactly the same. And it takes us a while to judge that. So I did it backwards, and I actually checked out the insurance for a 17. The average insurance for a 17-year-old, according to Compare the Market, is £1,672 a year. That is the average. So £3,300 are gone in insurance costs for these two. So you've actually got less than £17,000 to buy them, the two remaining cars. And I think in the end, you do have to go sensible and almost sensibler. And so I had a look to see, I thought I'd spend the £10,000 on something very sensible on a motorway. And there were three choices: a Ford Fiesta 1.1 from 2021. I'd want a newish one because I don't want my children to break down somewhere and pretend to have to be a spanner. So it was a Ford Fiesta from 2021, a Volkswagen Polo from 2020, or a 2020 Clio, which I quite like the look of, had the lowest mileage, and was slightly the sexiest. And they're all 5-door cars. They're all cars that they can get their mates into, and they're all cars that I guess the black box will be monitoring. And just being a bit boring, but I thought the best fun car was definitely, I found one 2014 MX-5 in red. It had 50,000 miles on it. It looked gorgeous, and it was £7,000. So that is how I'd spend the money.
I think you've done this best.
I think you've approached this with a maturity that frankly shames the way we've gone about it.
Exactly.
The only thing you got wrong is that the Fiesta is by far and away the more pleasant car to drive than the Polo.
Right.
I realise that. But good old Uncle Henry makes a great small hatchback.
Seats too high.
Oh, God, here we go. Right. Let's move on to our music. There's something wrong with the microphone. There's this irritating noise in the background. Neil Clifford, talk us through your song.
Do you mind if I do a little Jack and Ori? Just a little story I might. So I decided to go 80s, and I was sat there genuinely thinking, what for me is the number one song of the 80s? Now, I was a big ask. Massive, big ask. And there's not a right answer here, but anyway, emotionally, there's a right answer for me. I was a massive
Betty by the Mac Lads.
Committed, obsessive fan of the Jam. And I was completely and utterly broken when Weller announced the end of the Jam. And I mean, looking back, what an amazing strategic move, even though at the time when this was 82, November 82, and it actually ruined my O levels. I was sitting my O-levels in the April.
He did form the Style Council and give us a shout to the top, though, didn't he? So
he did, but at the time, we didn't know that, did we? And they were the biggest band. I adored the lyrics. I read every bloody lyric on the back of the single, and that beat. So it's Beat Surrender is my song.
Great song.
The fact that you can write a song about your own death in a way that came on. It was the first edition of the Tube. They played it live on the first
autumn 82.
Yeah, and that Top of the Pops, it went straight in at number one. Things went straight in at number one then. And
Well,
I
the
think
Jam certainly went in.
the Jam went, I think 3 out of the 4 number ones they had went straight in at number
Yep.
one. And
Who presented the tube? Was that Paulie Yates?
And Jules Holland.
And Jules Holland.
Yeah.
She was beautiful, wasn't she? Bless her.
Yeah.
And the tube is another debate. So
Yeah.
emotionally, I was shattered with the ending. It felt like the end of the world, the band splitting up. I was never, punk was a bit early for me. I was in a band myself. I played keyboards in The Identity. We'll talk about my band one day. But I was just shattered.
Mine was called Sequential Tones.
Not good for dyslexic, that one.
You're getting this wrong. This is not the therapy session. That's later on.
Now, the other tiny little bit on this is I had tickets for the last ever gig. They put one extra gig on, which was in Brighton on the 11th of December. So I was at the last gig of the Jam, and to see him play that Beat Surrender, I mean, it was just a massively emotional moment. And I had one little funny story to this. So Paul Weller has been my hero forever, both Style Council, Paul Weller, the whole thing. And someone in the shoe industry said to me, "Oh, my mate at Paul Weller's, he wants to do a shoe line." And I'm like, fucking get him in for a meeting. Get him in for a meeting. I'd just love to meet him. I'll make his shoes anyway, even if they're crap or whatever. So I went for a meeting. I was in a well-known department store beginning with H, and we were meeting. Paul Weller was coming in. And I'm like, I'm so fucking excited. And I knew I was going to act like a dick at this moment. And Paul Weller walks into the men's shoe department. I'd never met him before. And the guy said to him, "Oh, yeah, Paul, talk to Neil about your shoe line." He had nothing on him, not a case, nothing. And he just took his shoe off and handed his own shoe to me. He said, "Like that. I want a shoe like that. Can you do it?" And I said, "Of course." And I had this smelly shoe in my hand of Paul Weller's. And I was there groveling, saying, "Whatever you want, Paul, I can make this smelly shoe for you if you want." And it was just such a very amusing memory of the first time I met Paul Weller. He had one shoe on.
The first time. Does this mean there's been meetings afterwards?
No, it was the first and last time I met Paul Weller. Anyway, big hero of mine, Beat Surrender, 1982, broke my heart.
I'm going to do something really weird now. I don't normally do this because we all have random things in our lives. But about a year and a bit ago, I think it was. Yeah, about a year ago, I lent one of my cars to go to a wedding. I do sometimes. I don't really have any cars that are suitable for weddings. But I think someone said, "If you've got a car for a wedding, I want to have them." So I said, "I'll give you my M5 CS." And Paul Weller was at that wedding. And here's a picture of him. That's the mod father leaning on the M5 CS. How random's that?
That's because I've heard he listens to this podcast.
I think no, he's a
he doesn't live. I think he doesn't live too far away from here. That's a lovely story. Manish, add some culture.
I absolutely love Scott Walker, and I think he's just one of the greatest voices ever, Mr. Walker Brothers. And some people said he had a bit of an ego, and his solo albums were great. Like Scott 1, Scott 2, Scott 3, Scott 4, and
Little clue in there.
Oh, maybe a teeny bit, but Scott 4 is just the most incredible album. 1969, and there's a song on it, and it was really funny. For absolutely 2 years, I thought maybe it would be the very, very last song for episode 8 of Lucky. So Bernie's survived everything, got into Formula One, created this amazing business, been fired by Liberty Media, found his soul. And the song, it is stunning. It sounds like it was composed by Ennio Morricone. It literally sounds like a spaghetti Western soundtrack. Massive bass, the kind of bass that you'd have got Bruce Foxton playing in the Jam with. It's really got a big, big bass riff. And it's called The Old Man Is Back Again.
Oh,
and it will blow your head off when you hear it. And what the song, it's got a little subtitle. It's called Dedicated to the Neo-Stalinist Regime. And the song
that sounds like Rick Mail from the Young Ones.
Yeah.
honestly, it's Matt. Basically, he wrote the song as a protest against communism, and he was so worried about communism in the late 60s. And it is about a kind of modern Hitler stroke Stalin. And it's just got this one great line. And again, you just don't know whether this is straight or whether it's very tongue in cheek. It's a brilliant line. He sings it. He says, his mother called him Ivan. Then she died.
No.
It is just the greatest Scott Walker song. You will love it.
I'm
Listen
going to
to
listen to it right after
Scott
this.
Walker.
Yeah.
82.
Chris Cooper. Chris Cooper.
82 was an interesting year, wasn't it? Because it was kind of the start of, well, sort of well into New Romantics, first Duran Duran album, proper one.
First Duran Duran album was 81.
Was it? Because
When was the Human
when
League number one?
Tony-
That was 82, wasn't it?
Tony
That was
Blackman
82,
or Peter
yep.
Powell called them Duran on the BBC Top 30 on a Sunday night. Duran.
I'm sorry, what's wrong with that? Isn't that their name?
No,
Apparently not.
Okay.
Japan
82.
split up in 82. Japan split up in 82, which is very
David
sad.
Sylvian. Yeah. Gorgeous voice. Colin Chapman died.
You did.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
Not
living in
before
Brazil.
he'd taken that photograph of him with the plane and the Esprit at the end of the runway at Heffel, which
Yeah,
is
thank
the
God for that.
coolest
Thank God for
photograph
that.
ever taken.
So, but I did say last week I would choose a Britpop one this week. So Britpop 96 is kind of, was that the zenith of Britpop? Nebworth, Blur versus Oasis, European Championship.
I'm gonna be a bit controversial. So I think Britpop has to be at a point where Blair was in power, because I think that's when it really exploded. I think Britpop.
No, that's
came
Cool
in
Britannia.
97.
That was Cool Britannia. Different cultural phenomenon. But okay, let's share it. Anyway, so 96. Which was the best selling? Which band in the Britpop genre had the most hits in 96? One of the 2 years, 97 the other one, when Britpop zenith. Which
Blur.
band had the most top 40 hits in 96? Britpop-ish.
Spice Girls.
No, they weren't Britpop. Shed 7.
Were they?
And
Yeah.
Shed 7's landmark hit in 96 was Going for Gold.
Yeah, going for goal.
Brilliant.
Good song.
Yeah. So
Good
Shed
song,
7
man.
Going for Gold.
Right now, I don't say this very often, but I have got one preferred group, and I've got two Z's at the beginning. I'm a ZZ Top obsessive. I love ZZ.
We know that. You're allowed.
Really?
Yeah,
And,
oh, they're fantastic.
And 50 years ago, last week, their second studio album was released called
50 years.
50 years, 1973. So Tres Hombres is it's not actually my favorite album, but it has got arguably one of the most famous songs. So I'm going to have to say it. It's not my favorite song on the album even, but La Grange has been used in so many film soundtracks. It is a fantastic piece of blues rock. And I can't believe that album's 50 years old, but it is. It was released last week. You listen to that. It's a proper tune, that is. And I just think just a slightly heartwarming story to end this podcast that Edward's now gone, because the word box has been used a couple of times in this, and it can mean pit box or something that a present comes in. I was told a heartwarming joke earlier today, which is, why isn't there a pregnant Barbie doll?
Oh,
And it's because, and this is a logical answer, because Ken comes in a different box. Now,
I'm so sorry, Britain and the world and the Commonwealth and the realm.
I'm still working it out, but to me it seems logical that if you buy two dolls, they will arrive in different boxes.
We have to put up with this all week.
And on that note of biological helpfulness, I'd like to say thank you to my co-hosts, Manish Pandey, Neil Clifford, and Chris Cooper, as I just about put it together and say that we'll love you, leave you, and be with you again next week. Turn this fucking thing off before I let myself on.